Hey guys, Adam Harrison from Bourbon Guitars and welcome to the Cigar Box Guitar Builder. I have a couple of things today which you wouldn't generally associate with quality guitar building. What are some of the things that guitar builders have as a prerequisite? I'm talking 6-string guitars, acoustics, all that sort of stuff. Tone woods, be the big one, isn't it? Tone wood and tone wood. All right, bodies generally made out of things like, anything from alder to basswood to mahogany, maple, all that sort of stuff. Okay, necks, maple, mahogany, that's the usual. Ash, rosewood every now and again, purple heart, all that sort of stuff, all that fancy schmancy stuff. All right, and today I am making a very humble cigar box guitar using some really simple stuff. The first thing I'm using is radiata pine. No! Radiata pine? Very inexpensive. Still very cheap. I used to be able to buy these lengths from here in Australia from Bunnings. We used to be able to get these for $2.50 a length, and that was pre-COVID. They're now $5. The reason I like these as opposed to the very long pieces, there's very little twisting. You do have to go through the pile. Don't just pick them random because you will get some that'll bend off like a banana, or they'll be up or down or all over the place, twisted, all that sort of thing. So you do want to get a fairly straight piece of timber, okay? This is a really fun hobby to get into. If you don't want to spend a large amount of money to get into it. So that's why I'm building using these materials today. I also wanted to show you that you can actually make a really nice guitar using radiata pine for a neck, for a fretboard, and I will be putting frets on this guitar. It's very rare for me to do fretless instruments, as I tend to find that the majority of the guitars that I sell are fretted. I do always make fretless instruments, but when 90% of your sales are fretted, you've kind of got to go that direction a little bit. I also really enjoy playing fretted instruments as well. So what are we going to do with this particular guitar? We're going to do a few different things. We are going to use a piezo pickup on this one. So last few guitars that I've built using some reclaimed magnetic pickups, some old magnetic pickups. This time around, I'm going to use a piezo pickup. I am going to be using a 0 fret as per Del Puckett. I'm also going to be using the tilt back neck. The other thing I'm going to be using, believe it or not, is a cardboard cigar box, not a timber cigar box. These La Paz cigar boxes are absolutely beautiful, but they're made of cardboard through and through. So I'm going to treat this just the same as I would a timber cigar box, and we'll see what happens. One of the things that will happen with this is it will be braced. Obviously, I've got 4 bracing pieces here. It will be braced under the neck and screwed under the neck. All of the pressure that goes into a cigar box guitar of this type is on the neck alone. There's no pressure, or virtually no pressure at all, on the sound chamber, which in this case is a cigar box, cardboard cigar box. Okay, so let's just see how we go. I have already shaped the headstock fairly roughly. I have shaped the neck down here. There we go. I have shaped the neck down here on the routing table. The routing bit decided to wander a little bit, so there's a special twisting part on the machine that I didn't actually tighten up, and it decided to wander a bit. So it took a little bit more out of the neck than I wanted to, but I'm not worried about that. I've since sanded that back. with 240 grit. And I don't particularly mind if there's a couple of little router lines in there. I quite like that. I always leave little sanding marks and things like that in there. There's a Japanese saying that basically means the maker's mark, and I quite like that. Okay, next thing we are going to use, we are going to countersink some screws. I don't really need to because it is radiator pine, but I don't mind. Again, I'm not being precious about this. I'm just going to place these in. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'll give those front ones a bit of a sand, and I'll give the back ones a bit of a sand as well. Okay, I do want to use some fairly chunky screws for this particular piece. Normally, I use the 6G by 30mm screws. All right, but today, and for radiator pine, when I do use it, I use 8G. It's a bit wider, and I just feel that if I'm screwing something together, I'd rather use a slightly chunkier teeth, for lack of a better word. Here we go. Got a screwdriver. You can see what I'm doing here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-sink these screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to show you. I'll bring you over, and I'll show you how I set my clamps up for this particular job. Okay, I hope you can see that. Okay, so the first thing I do is I use one of these long clamps, these F clamps. Okay, and I clamp it to the bench. This is 2 pieces. Okay, so this is the length of pine that I'm using here, and there's another length of pine here as a bit of a strengthening tenon inside the body. This is especially helpful if I wanted to use a magnetic pickup. It gives me double the thickness in that area where I would need to cut out a section. We're not with this. This is going to be a piezo equipped cigar guitar. The next thing I do, so I'm clamping the 2 pieces down, one on top of the other. The next thing I do is I help it find center. So if I'm putting the drill in, it doesn't wander. Sometimes when you put the drill in, it wants to shift, even with your hand on it. So I actually put these cross, and I go across the seam. So I actually can center this, so it's not, I don't have this piece of wood that far or this piece that far. You can do it with fretboard material if it's exact. That is the thing you can do. I generally don't. I usually use this method, the press down method. Anywho, so I can relieve these now. So I'm going to take that one off now. Don't need that. I'm going to take this one off. If you're building, the one thing I would suggest you do is get these. You can get them from Bunnings again here in Australia. They're relatively inexpensive. I think they're about $8 each. But they are extremely good, and I've had some of these. I've literally had them for nearly 9 years, and they're still just as good as the day I got them, if not grubby. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is I'll remove that. I'll just pop this down just to keep that strength there. You can see that I've got those little bumps here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'll use those as guiding little guiders for when I put it back on, and that way I know it's not going to slip again. It's sitting there. So let's pop some glue on. I'm going to put the glue on this piece here. And here we go. Oh, look at this. This glue fell over. Nice, got it all over the battery. I'll clean that up in a bit. Oh, lovely. All right. I just use, as far as glue is concerned, I find here in Australia it's a little difficult to get my hands on things like, oh, what's that glue that everyone in the States always uses for building guitars? Oh, you're all yelling at the screen at the moment at me saying, it's this, it's this, it's this. Tight Bond, that's it. I usually use the Selleys Acrid here. That's the external one, which is really strong. I've never had anything fall apart with this, and I've built thousands of guitars. It's just ridiculous. I actually don't mind this the Cigar woodworking glue as well, Cigar Bond. This is a bit runnier though. I usually like the Sellies because it's a little more viscous. Okay, I'll just spread that out with my finger. There we go. Now, I'm not particularly worried about whether or not I get glue on the sides, on the inside, because this will be inside the body. I try and keep it away from the edge if I can of the sections that are going to be outside of the box, i.e. up the front of this tenon. And you notice I've rounded that over. This is how I round that over so it's comfortable on your hand. Or I'll just use those screws. Now, to find center. These screws will stay in the guitar forever now. There we go. Don't overdo it. Don't need to. There's a little bit of run out on the side. I didn't really need to worry about that too much. So that'll be glued up. That's all fine. Now, next thing I want to do. There is one thing that I generally do like to do. And that is, I do like to cut the this piece out. But when I do that, I usually do remove these two screws here. How deep are those screws going to go? Yes, I think I'm fairly safe. So this is how far the box. So I've got a line here. You notice I've got a line just there on how far in I want the fretboard basically to finish at the end of this part of the box. So what I will do, use one of my little magic T-squares here, draw a line. This is the line I'm going to want. And I'm going to pop in a very small angle. Use one of my 1000 rulers. I don't want it to be too deep. I just want a little back angle. In fact, if I do this right, I'm really not going to need to worry too much about how far in those screws actually go. If I'm at all worried, I can just loosen these two back ones up just a pinch maybe. And let's run those across the back there, and I'm just going, I'll flip that. Always put your ruler on the meaty part. Don't kind of rule off the edge because it'll slip off. So you got a bit of meat there on this side, so you're good to go there. I'll pop this there as well. There we go. And then I'll probably just take a little bit out up to about there as well. This allows for some space actually. That's all right. We'll play around with that. I've got a couple of points there marked. I'm not being pedantic. I'm not being really anal about it or anything like that. We'll see what happens. Now we've got this section here now. You can see what I've done there. I've just created a little bit of a back angle now on the guitar. And I've just taken out there'll be a shelf for the lid to sit on there. There's a shelf there for it to comfortably sit on here. And I've got a marking here, which is my 24, because I'm doing a 24-inch scale length from the bridge up. And I'm just going to tidy this little section up here a little bit. And I'll do that with, just pop the clamp there gently, just with the Shinto. There we go. All right. Next step, I'll pop in a tiny little recess here for a for my piezo disc, and we'll go from there.